So, a lot to unpack in the world of the NBA as we are just hours away from free agency commencing, and it's only going to get better with all the additional moves that are about to be made, hopefully starting with the Bulls signing Zach Lavine to a 5-year deal. But because so much happened in the NBA yesterday, as we reached the deadline for extending qualifying offers, players opting in or out of their contracts, or teams opting in or out depending on player versus team options for said agreements. You have big trades as well, and likely more coming today. It's possible by the time you're watching this that even more transactions have been completed. So suffice it to say, there is a lot to highlight and discuss based on what we know right now, especially in how some of these moves and news relate to the Bulls and how they could position their roster once free agency begins. So in today's video, I'll be breaking down everything that has happened to date at the time of this recording anyway, and how it could potentially impact the Bulls, if at all. So what's going on, everyone? You're listening to Bulls Central here. Hope you're all doing well. Now, we were expecting a lot of NBA news to come out yesterday because last night was the deadline for any player or team options to be exercised, as well as qualifying offers to players finishing their rookie scale contracts. And you know it was all going to hit at once within a few hours, so if it felt overwhelming just trying to keep up with everything, well, don't worry, you're not alone, and you've come to the right place because I'm going to consolidate and break down all the moves in hopefully an easy and digestible fashion. And as I mentioned, I'll be tying everything back to the Bulls and how it impacts their offseason moves. Now, first up, I have to start with the Spurs trading Jonte Murray, because that was probably the biggest piece of news that happened yesterday. I mean, the rumors have been heating up around the Spurs looking to trade Murray. Initially, it was thought that John Collins was going to be included in the package along with picks. Then it shifted to Danilo Gallinari and picks, but honestly, I just didn't think the Spurs would actually pull the trigger on trading their best player, who just was selected to his first All-Star team, one of the better two-way players in the league, and still young with upside potential. I believe he's only 25. It's the last guy I would have expected to be on the trading block with the level of young talent that the Spurs have. But at the same time, sure, the Spurs weren't going to be winning anything anytime soon. Why waste Murray's prime and just sell high while his trade value is high? Go into a full rebuild and tank for the #1 pick and get draft capital in the trade, which they most certainly did. 3 first-round picks, 2 of which were unprotected. I cannot believe the Hawks sent them unprotected first-round picks. Like, you never know what happens in the NBA. You could face a major injury or injuries to your best players, finish in the lottery, and somehow win the lottery and get that #1 pick, and now you have to send that over to the Spurs because you had no protections on that pick. That is a huge gamble, especially for a Hawks team that barely squeaked into the playoffs to make all-in type moves and mortgaging their future on Dejounte Murray. But either way, I get it. I can see the argument for both sides and why they did it. As it relates to the Bulls, though, I mean, this isn't as significant for the Bulls as some other moves that were made, but it does call a couple things into question, most notably that John Collins is still likely an option that could be on the move. He's been in trade rumors for some time now, and I think that's even more so the case with the addition of Murray, with now Trae Young and Dejounte being the franchise cornerstone pieces going forward. I actually like John Collins and think he would be a perfect fit for the Bulls with his size, athleticism, and two-way play. My biggest hesitation, though, is his big contract, and of course it conflicts with Patrick Williams' role and would slow down his development. So I think the Bulls pursuing Collins is probably unlikely. Then on the other side, for the Spurs, this could potentially mean Jakob Poeltl is on the trading block, since the Spurs are going into a full rebuild, and Poeltl doesn't really fit their timeline. And Poeltl could actually have decent trade value for the Spurs. I mean, this is a player the Bulls could certainly use for more depth in the front court. Poeltl is one of the more underrated big men in the league. He's continued to get better in recent years, proving to be a solid rim protector, but also now improving his offensive game. I would love it if the Bulls pick up Poeltl if the price is right. My gut feeling, though, is the Spurs are going to want more than he's worth in a trade. In other news, though, and rumors around the Bulls being interested in Mo Bamba have been picking up, and wouldn't you know it, the Magic also did not tender a qualifying offer to Mo Bamba, making him an unrestricted free agent. It's obvious why the Bulls would be interested in Bamba. 24 years old, had his best season last year, averaging 10 and 8 along with 1.7 blocks, and doing so only on 25 minutes per game, and improving his three-point shot substantially, shooting 38% on 4 attempts per game. So not only does he provide rim protection, but also would help space the floor and provide some shooting, 2 things the Bulls need. We forget this guy was a top 5 recruit coming out of high school, was the #6 pick in the 2018 draft, actually was drafted right before Wendell Carter Jr. Like, this kid had a lot of potential coming into the league, and just hasn't found his stride. Hasn't been the best fit in Orlando. He's also struggled with injuries. So this might be a good new change of scene and going to a team that needs a backup 5 that you could potentially develop into their starting center once Vucevic's contract expires. So I actually would like this move if they can get him for the mid-level exception. Bamba was also another one of my free agent targets from that video that I made talking about top free agency targets for the Bulls. I really do think this is a low-risk, high-reward scenario with bringing in Bamba. Not a game changer for the Bulls by any means, but he does give them some depth off the bench that is greatly needed. Some other news, Bobby Portis declined his player option of $4.6 million with the Milwaukee Bucks, which I said in my video on the top 5 free agent targets for the Bulls that I thought Portis was going to decline his player option, just because we all knew he took a steep discount to stay in Milwaukee after winning a championship there and being a fan favorite, but based off of his level of production this season, well exceeding his pay, you had to think he was going to opt to get a bigger contract. Now, he could still remain with the Bucks, just opting for a longer-term agreement that is more lucrative. The problem, though, is the Bucks don't have a ton of cap space to pay him what he would likely command from other teams. So, in come the Bulls. The Bulls need a backup big at the 4 or 5, a high-energy, scrappy player who hustles on both ends and can even spread the floor with his shooting. Things didn't end on the best of terms with Bobby in Chicago. He probably doesn't have the best memories here with, you know, punching Mirotic in the face and eventually getting traded after he declined an extension with the Bulls. But hey, it's a new front office. Maybe they can convince Bobby to come and stop hating on Chicago so much. Could the mid-level exception be enough for Bobby, since that's really all the Bulls can offer without a sign and trade of some kind? Or is Bobby looking for more? I don't know, but something to consider if you're the Bulls. The next piece of news we received, which directly relates to the Bulls, and that's that the Bulls did not tender a qualifying offer to Troy Brown Jr., which, by the way, for those that aren't familiar with what that means, because I keep throwing this term qualifying offer around, well, in short, it means Troy Brown Jr. won't be on the Chicago Bulls next season. After a player's rookie contract expires, teams have the ability to either offer them an extension the year before their contract expires. If they don't reach an extension, teams can extend them a qualifying offer to make them a restricted free agent, meaning they can go out and get an offer sheet from any team in the league, but the current team has the ability to match said offer or just let them walk if the price is too steep. In this case with Troy Brown Jr., the Bulls did not extend him a qualifying offer because if no team actually wanted him, the Bulls would be forced to pay him that 1-year offer. Instead, the Bulls declined, making Troy Brown Jr. an unrestricted free agent. He can now go wherever he wants. This also takes away the ability of any potential sign-in trades for Troy Brown Jr. that the Bulls might have packaged. I mean, in short, I'm not surprised by this decision from the Bulls. Troy Brown Jr. really didn't pan out and fell below expectations after we traded for him from the Washington Wizards. It was probably one of the poorer moves of this new front office, trading Troy Brown Jr. for Daniel Gafford, which I know there was more involved in that trade, especially when you factor in that, you know, there was a trade that went along with the Celtics with that, but it's definitely one of the more disappointing outcomes, especially for a player I was pretty high on, thinking this past season was going to be a strong one for him, but he underperformed and now he's going to be off the team. A couple more pieces of news. Another player who did not receive a qualifying offer that I think could be an opportunity for the Bulls, and that was the Kings letting Donte DiVincenzo enter unrestricted free agency. He was one of my honorable mentions as far as free agent targets the Bulls should look at as a solid scoring option off of the bench. He's a decent three-point shooter, and now that he's going to be an unrestricted free agent, Bulls might be able to get him for cheap, as I don't know that there's actually going to be a high market for DiVincenzo. Patty Mills also declined his player option, probably to re-sign with the Nets for a longer-term deal, but could be an interesting option for the Bulls for more scoring off the bench and just having a good veteran leader. The Bulls don't really need any more guards, though, so I don't think either of these options actually come to fruition. And then finally, this one is just a rumor, nothing official or anything like that, but evidently the Lakers could be making a run at Coby White, which, surprise, surprise, the Lakers are interested in an inconsistent, inefficient scoring guard. Who knew, right? I don't know how legitimate these reports are, but it wouldn't surprise me because the Lakers are interested really in everyone at this point. But hey, if the Lakers are in fact trying to go after Coby White, I'm down to benefit from their incompetence. I mean, throw in some picks and maybe sign and trade for Malik Monk, I'll take it. I mean, it sounds like based on the fact that Coby wasn't moved on draft night, after multiple reports saying the Bulls were shopping him, and then nothing happened, it tells me that probably there isn't much of a trade market for Coby and his trade value isn't very high. So if the Lakers are wanting him, the Bulls might have some leverage to get something decent in return. We'll see if anything actually happens there, though. I'll believe it when I see it. Anyway, these next few hours as we hit free agency are going to be pretty exciting. I'm very curious to see what the Bulls do. I hope they do something because ever since last offseason, they've kind of been quiet in making moves while the rest of the league has been aggressive in making their teams better. But either way, I'll be keeping you guys posted as any breaking news drops. Let me know your thoughts on the moves that have happened thus far. And guys, as always, be sure to subscribe if you're a Bulls fan, as I do post daily Bulls content. Thanks again for tuning in, guys, and I'll catch you in the next one.